Minneapolis, St. Paul, and in a few other markets. Okay. 5. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you, and I'm so excited to have this wonderful group of women to talk about Adelita Grijalva. Who is she? She is from Arizona, the Congresswoman-elect. What is going on, everybody? I'm going to start this again at the top because I can't believe I messed her name. I'm an Ita also, and I'm sensitive to that. Oh, yes. Okay, we're up in 15. Okay, 10, 5. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. What are we going to talk about? Adelita Grijalva. Why are we talking about her? Because she was elected in September 23rd, 2025, and the House Speaker refuses to swear her in. Now, I know that the government is closed right now, but you could have something called a pro forma swearing in. That is, you bang the gavel, swear her in, bang the gavel, and go into recess. He's refusing to do that. Why? Well, she would be the 218th vote for the House to release, and then the government would have to do this, to release the unredacted Epstein files, or whatever's left of them. Let's just keep it real. They've had it so long and they're in charge of it. But now that Virginia Giuffre's book is out, there are even more questions about what happened. And then there's a lot of speculation about a foreign government essentially holding our elected leaders and some of the most important business persons hostage, shaping our policy, contorting it, if you will. So I want to know what your thoughts are, because this is happening in more than one place. Think of Sheila Jackson Lee, the woman who held Barbara Jordan's seat. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant lawyer, and a champion of those who were living under the boot of oppression. Well, she succumbed to cancer in July of 2024. And the mayor of, well, then her daughter took over temporarily, and then the mayor of Houston took over. No one knew that he was battling his own health issues, but in spite of that, he stepped forward and he was determined to serve out his term, even as he was struggling to stay alive. Well, the night of the State of the Union address, he was there. He was sitting next to my brother, who serves in the House of Representatives. And he quietly went to the hospital after that and died. And Governor Gregory Abbott has refused to hold an election to seat him. So basically, from March until today, well, until November, Monday, almost a year, this seat will be open. The people of Houston will have had no representative in one district. What about that? That's more than 750,000 people who will not have had a say. So I pulled together this beautiful, beautiful group of women. And indeed, I have to give Betty Magnus credit for this. Of course, she's been the political director at Rainbow Push for a long time. And I said, I need to find some women who can really talk about this. And women, yes, because I think that we are all under the boot. Somehow or another, women and brown women, black women, white women, all women have some kind of trouble getting into our places of leadership. Those who really are going to fight for the underdog, Illinois State Senator Lakeisha Collins, well, you have a harder way to go. If you stand up for the oligarchs, Jane Ruby, president of the Chicago League of Women Voters, somehow or another, you kind of get onboarded very quickly. But Anusha Thodakora, executive director of Citizen Action Illinois, I just can't for the life of me figure out, even though I've given you some things, I can't figure out why it is that the people of Arizona would be denied a representative. Now, mind you, there is a razor thin margin, but some Republicans have migrated over to be with the Democrats to say, look, we need to know what's in the files, the Epstein files. But then you've got healthcare. There are a lot of things that are on the line right now. And Speaker Johnson refuses to look at this. Well, you know what? You are in a legislative body, Illinois State Senator Lakeisha Collins. How do you read this?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson, for having me on your show, especially with other dynamic women in this space. How I view this is a way to silence, representatives and their constituents. I think that, Speaker Johnson is doing the will of Trump. He is, holding one of the most precious things people can have, which is the ability to have their representative speak on their behalf in Congress, which we know there's a lot of issues in Congress. The government shutdown is affecting a lot of families. And I mean, November 1st, people are going to be without SNAP. And so, we could talk about the Epstein files, but it's more than that. And we're talking about a seat, like you said, that has been open for a year, which means that those constituents haven't had any services. And I know that, for us here in the state of Illinois, we do everything in our willpower to make sure that no matter what, that we keep our services moving forward. And that's what we're doing in our legislature. And so it's a disappointment. It's not really surprising. But it lets us know that there's something more that they're hiding by not swearing her in. And it's a disrespect to democracy. It's a disrespect to the people who deserve representation.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go around this way. Well, let me go on up to you. I feel like I'm in Hollywood Squares, but you wouldn't remember. Nobody would remember that but me, because I'm older than everyone here. Jane Ruby, Chicago League of Women Voters. It's your turn. How do you read this?
Yeah, there's so many different layers to this, but at the end of the day, this is the patriarchy, doing what they always do, and that's keeping people down, keeping women down, keeping people of color down and out of the positions of power. If they claim that, oh well, other people have delayed their swearing in ceremonies, and it's like, yes, there have been times that have happened in history, but does that make it right? Does that make it okay? No. I think that the Epstein files are definitely a part of it, but I think a huge part of this is their ability to bully a woman, who is also a person of color in this country, and assert their power in that way. Everyone should be outraged by this. This is not, a singular district or a singular type of person that should be, in the trenches calling this out. It's the responsibility of all of us to hold our government accountable in times like this.
Well, Anusha Thotakura, you've got to help me to understand. Thotakura, excuse me. Help me to understand what your read on this would be, because it's bordering on the absurd now.
I mean, I think it's just one of the many recent incidents that's like a string of just absurdities in which during any other normal timeline, this would be the only thing that people are talking about as an example of an absurd abuse of power and of lawlessness. But in the context of all the other things going on in our country, it's just one more event. And if we don't give it the attention that it deserves, that the people of Arizona have duly elected their member of Congress and are now not being given representation. I mean, it's amazing to see that their attorney general has filed a lawsuit to make sure that they can advance representation, because right now they are being taxed without representation in Arizona, right? This is the reason that we had the American Revolution, because our country was founded on the ideals that there should be no taxation without representation. But that is what Speaker Johnson is denying for Arizonans. And in that way, that's how we backslide into further abuses of power, when we stop questioning the first incident. And this is a major incident, but it's just one of the many things going on right now in our country. Whether you look at the abuses of power by ICE, the cuts to SNAP, like Senator Collins mentioned, the cuts to Medicaid. These are all basic functions of our government, providing food, healthcare, housing, education to people that Republicans are dismantling in a matter of months.
But why is it particularly noteworthy, Anusha, that the Attorney General of the state is now suing the Speaker of the House? Because do you think it's because, they're looking at tyranny? Because that's what taxation without representation is, right?
Yeah, and you have to fight, right? We have to fight on all accounts, and one way is fighting through the legal system. So grateful to the Attorney General for doing that. But we also, as members of the public, have to be able to fight as well. We have to call out abuses of power where we can.
Well, Senator Collins, is this Illinois' fight as well? I mean, I see that Congresswoman AOC has spoken up about this. Is this a national issue, do you think?
I had myself muted. Yes, I think this is a national issue. I think that because there are so many things being thrown at us at one time, it's not a lot of folks that can keep up with what's happening. When I tell you, every time I turn on the TV, every time I get a phone call, it's something different. There's so much urgency around all of these things that are happening right now. I just got another call today about, DBE contracts with IDOT. Like, the system that Trump and his cronies are creating is literally dismantling every single thing that our elders have fought for. So when you think about, SNAP benefits, when you think about Medicaid, when you think about, education, you think about all of the foundations that was put in place to protect people, Black people, that, brown folks and, all others have benefited from as well. He's rolling all of that back, which is causing the chaos. And at the same time, he's screaming that there's violence happening everywhere, right? Like, he created the problem and then he's offering up a false solution while also taking everybody down and enriching his friends. And so this issue with the representative is one of the many issues that are created by this administration. So yeah, it's unprecedented. It's happened before, but we also know that they can still appoint her right now. And just adding her voice to the to Congress, it will help do a lot of other things. And so I think that it is personal. I think it is an attack, but I also think that this is not a regular Republican Party that we're dealing with. I think this is literally good versus evil. And I think that it is going to take for folks to be educated about what's going on. It's going to take a lot of action on the streets as far as peaceful protests. But then it's also going to take a number of not just lawsuits, but really, organizing on the ground level, because there is a disconnect there that I don't think anybody is paying attention to. Because you have folks, and I'm just going to speak for the Black community, because I am the joint chairwoman of the Black Caucus. There is a divide in the Black community right now. You have progressives and you have conservatives. And, there are folks who are saying that they have not been seen or heard. And so therefore, that is playing into a lot of the propaganda that's on the TV. And so what I've been telling people is that just start, hitting people with the truth, with the facts. You cannot leave a conversation without hearing the person out, but also educating them. Because right now, with folks who don't think that they're going to be directly impacted, or they're still kind of drinking that MAGA Kool-Aid, they are going to be impacted. They think that it's just a game right now, that it's just words. And these words that Trump said during his campaign and Project 2025 are becoming reality. And so I think this is just one of the many issues that we're dealing with. And it's so many happening at one time that everybody is just like all over the place. So,
well, Jane Ruby, and
that's what we're trying to figure out.
No, but you know what? I hear you. I mean, but when I look at President Trump, to me, he is a passing figure.
Yes.
Just because really it's the oligarchs. We have to look at the founding of the nation. The monarchs and the oligarchs had a fight. Now, poor white people were not even included in that. But what we're watching, and people kind of we love, you're too young to remember the lifestyles of the rich and famous. It was a famous show in the 80s. You were not even thought of, Senator Collins. Neither you, Anusha.
85.
You weren't even, I said you weren't even thought of. You missed that show. You missed it. But it's something that we celebrate, right? We celebrate royalty, and our new royalty. We trade monarchy for oligarchy, and they've had a plan. And Dr. King used to say, "Evil men plot, therefore good men must plan."
Yes.
And I think that we have got to really we have to understand Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and the people whose names you dare not speak, because they're the ones who have the plan. The man we talk about is really, he's the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is so, he's 80. This is so beyond him. It's so beyond. I mean, it's so beyond anyone in the presidency, because the presidency itself has almost become a shell of what it was supposed to be. It's so sad. And in the meantime, I'm watching on television today lines of government workers, Jane Beebe. They know they're not getting paid on November 1st. They know it. And they're at food banks that are running out of food. We have farmers who are committing suicide. There's an epidemic of that because these tariffs have cut them out of a global marketplace. And we're about to give $20 to $40 billion to Argentina. We've killed a big chunk of our agricultural business to give to them. Help me to understand make this make sense for me. I mean, because when you don't have Adelita Grijalva on that forum making that case, to your point, Senator Collins, to your point, Anusha, to your point, Jane, that's one less voice. That's one less relationship that's been built. You don't know who she could cross over and talk to on the other side of the aisle, because that does happen. I mean, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I agree with her on Gaza, on the government shutdown, on healthcare. Wait a minute. A lot of things I disagree with her on, but I agree with her on those things. And if she can give me those 3 votes, I'm better off than I was. But I mean, what do we do? Because we need her voice, Jane. And it's just like we need the voice in Texas. And now look at what they've done in North Carolina. We're about to lose a Democratic held seat. Jane, what are we supposed to do right now?
Well, we need to call it what it is. We are in a constitutional crisis. The League of Women Voters back in April officially declared, in our 100-year history as an organization, we are actively in a constitutional crisis. One of in the sort of lawsuit that the Attorney General in Arizona has filed on behalf of the Congresswoman, the Constitution is very clear cut in process of this, and Speaker Johnson is in violation of the Constitution in not swearing her in. There is so much that is being pushed against, so United States, we have one of the toughest constitutions to change. And, that's been something that back when it was, established, a lot of people were not included in the Constitution, and we've been fighting for decades to be more inclusive in our government, in the words in our Constitution. And so that's one problem. But in general, our Constitution is really very, very clear about process around these things. And one of the reasons for that was to ensure that we did not have a monarchy come back. Mm-hmm. And what we are seeing is, just complete disregard of our Constitution and the rule of law here in this country. And this has been, a process that just didn't happen overnight. This has been slowly thought out, slowly planned by the powers that be behind the scenes to the situation we're in. A quote that I often, in my conversations with people about, what to do. When Ben Franklin left the Independence Hall after the Constitution
Yes.
was settled on, and a
That
woman,
convention, right?
yeah, a woman came up to him and was like, "So, Mr. Franklin, what do we have? Do we have a monarchy or do we have a republic?" Which I think is very interesting and telling in that story that a woman went up to him.
That's right.
And he was like, "A republic if you can keep it."
But why do you think it's interesting that a woman who didn't have the right to vote at that time, why do you think it was interesting that this woman just shouted out from the crowd, "Sir, what kind of government have you given us?"
Because women, just because, women haven't, gender is not in our Constitution. Women have been ignored, not paid attention to. We had to fight really hard for the right to vote. We had to fight really hard for, civil rights here in this country. But it doesn't mean that, women have just been sitting around not paying attention to what's happening. Women have always been, able to think for ourselves, pay attention, participate as much as we've been able to, and we're fighters at the end of the day. Like, I think it's something in our DNA that just inherently we're problem solvers, inherently we're ready for the fight, to fight for what's right. And I think that even back in during the Constitutional Convention, women were paying attention. Like, the Constitution affected them, even if they weren't inherently mentioned or included in the process.
Well, I mean, when I read these books about John Adams, for example, I mean, many, and even George Washington, their wives were very involved with them behind the scenes in helping to shape their thinking. It just took us, a couple of centuries to get the vote.
Abigail Adams, there's that famous quote from one of her letters to her husband. It's like, remember the women, and a lot of that is just, it's funny, but it's also, it's a warning. We are coming for you if you are not going to be thinking about us in the decisions of, what kind of country y'all are, making for us.
Well, I mean, Anusha, what do you think? Because I could say, Jane, oftentimes in times of enslavement in the United States, Black women ran the plantations. We're the ones who did that. We've never had the space not to. We just never got the credit, right? Mm-hmm. And in colonialism, we just that has been the thing. That having been said, we're forgetting, we're burying everybody now. And, because the big trick, the joke has always been that the poor, whatever your color, were not included. It's just poor whites were separated from us by, they racialized, enslavement, made whites the indentured servants, enslaved Black people. So there's always been, not a real understanding that it meant you too, that we're all in this. And so when they decide not to fill Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, not to swear in this living, breathing person, I mean, she's standing right there. I think that all Americans should be insulted by that. I mean, all he has to do is bang the gavel, swear her in, bang the gavel, and clear the session. That's all it's called pro forma. That's all he has to do. And he is willfully opposing the American people, Anusha. Jane, it's Senator. I mean, it's what we call a diss. I mean, that's what he's doing, Anusha. And feel free, ladies, unlock your mics. We have a little bit of disorder and chaos when we talk. That's how I have this, as long as we're respectful with each other. Jump on in and talk. But
well, obviously there's something in there in those files that they don't want to get out, which is that their commander in chief, their homeboy, is all through those files. And so I think that in itself is one of the reasons. I think the other reason too is again, what we're talking about right now, just women being in, government and bringing a different platform where we're talking about issues that men have forever made decisions about, whether it be about having autonomy over our own body. They've
Well,
been
wait,
planning
what
that
do you,
since it.
as an elected official, what do you bring? And I want Jane, I want Anusha, I want you to talk about this because women do bring something else to the discussion. I want the League of Women Voters to host the debates again.
Say that again. I'm
Because
sorry, my phone.
no, I want the League of Women Voters to host the debates again. Women bring something else to the process. We do. But State Senator Lakeisha Collins, you can't hear me, but you know what? Come back in. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't. Well, go out and come back
I'm
in.
gonna log out and come back in.
Okay, there you go. I mean, women bring something else to the discussion. We do. And please, Jane, Anusha, please jump in because that's what's missing too. So Jane, Anusha, have at it.
Well, one thing I'll say is that women often wear multiple hats. Women are busy. Women are working. Women are taking care of their families, taking care of their kids. And oftentimes, when the world is burning, women have a lot of things to focus on outside of paying attention to the news. But the message that I would share is like, now is a time to pay attention before it becomes too late. So if you're listening to this right now, now is the time to be having those conversations with your friends, with your family. Thanksgiving is around the corner because that's where organizing starts. You have to start having conversations with people about how this big, ugly bill is going to be impacting them. What is happening in DC is going to be impacting them. And it's not just about, the controversial issue of the day, which, today we're talking about how Congresswoman-elect Grijalva is not being able to be sworn in, because people can dismiss that as that's just political, or Democrats would do the same thing if they were in power, which is not true based on historical precedent. But talk about the impact of the issues, right? What's going to happen in your community to your friends and family when they lose access to healthcare, whether it's through Medicaid or the I.C.E tax credits, which is the reason why negotiations have stalled, because Republicans would rather shut down the government than extend I.C.E enhanced tax credits for millions of Americans. When their local food banks are running out of food because people are losing access to SNAP, those are the things that you need to educate yourself on to know what's the impact for you, your family, your community, and to share that message with your neighbors. And there is no better messenger than a woman. There really isn't.
Right.
Women are relationship builders. They are connectors. They are storytellers. And that's what it's going to take. Talking about how these issues impact you and your community with your loved ones who may not know what's going on.
Because we never have the luxury of being alone.
Correct.
And I can say that as someone who is unmarried. I've got a father who's got health issues now. And the expectation is that the daughters will contribute in ways that the sons are not expected to. I'm not saying that my brothers don't contribute, because they do, but the expectation, I don't care how hard you work. That's just, it's not just the culture. Women do function on many different levels. Senator. You were a representative, but now you're the senator.
Oh, no.
Senator.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add on to that. I'm sorry, I had some issues. Somebody interrupted the call, but I was just going to add on to that women in these spaces, I can speak for me because I am going through that. Like some of us are working moms. And so again, the expectations are extremely high. And for whatever reason, people forget that we're regular people too. And so I'm always talking to my constituents and letting them know, like, hey, I'm a mom, I'm a working mom, but I am showing up. And most of the time I hear from people like, when do you sleep? Or, oh my God, I forgot you had kids. It's because we don't use them as crutches, and because we have to work 3 to 4 times harder just to be seen in those rooms. And sometimes you got to flip a couple of invisible tables too. And then also it has a lot to do with, the fact that Black women have to work even harder in these spaces. Right. And so it's a lot with that. But I am concerned about Arizona not having the representation that they need. And I think that she will bring a lot of, issues forth, especially in the moment that we're in right now. I think that there needs to be more noise about this appointment, because, like I said, they are abusing their power. And a lot of the stuff that they're doing, if it's left unchecked, we will be doomed. And so, yeah, I'm glad that we have a platform right now to speak about this issue because it is important.
So
But
I
it's
think,
not getting as much attention as it needs to be, as it needs to
well,
have.
because even as we look at the Epstein files, the they're putting women out front, and we should, because the trafficking of women and children and boys, it's a horrible thing. It is far more prevalent uh,
Hmm.
than we really want to admit, and it's far more pervasive in with the powerful. We have to
Correct.
be very, very honest about that. But we're also in that case because Virginia Giuffre's book just dropped today, and
Mm.
she names the Israeli prime minister, the former prime minister. And, there are other books that Gideon Spies that talk about uh, Epstein's how Epstein was used to blackmail our politicians and bend policy. And that's the discussion
Hmm.
that we really, Senator Collins, Anusha, Jane, we don't want to have that discussion. We'd almost rather talk about Virginia, even though we're not really talking about her. Because everyone says, oh, yeah, she committed suicide. She told you that she was not going to do that.
Hmm.
That she has some crazy car accident that did not look like a car accident, and then she dies.
Well,
You know,
a lot of this stuff is, again, I can, I'm not gonna give my age, but I can give my age. It is what it is. I'm
I'll
a,
give you
a
mine.
85 baby. Okay. I'm about to be 40. And I will tell you that even as a young person, I have been hearing about a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in present day happen. Right. And I know, some people think that these are conspiracies. They don't think that it's a real thing. They think that it's just Democrats, just trying to find something to stick on to Republicans. But the reality is that these are real issues that are happening right now. Donald Trump won his election on fear mongering people, talking about crime, 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 talking about getting back at his enemies. He talked about literally is exposing what this country has always been about, and that's race, and that's classism. It's corporations. Like, he's taking out all of these tax breaks and giving them to his friends while he's starving out communities across
Wait a
this
minute.
country.
His friends who put him in. See, listen to what
Exactly.
he said at the Knesset.
Exactly.
He thanked Miriam Adelson. He thanked her because she
Mhm.
put hundreds of millions of dollars into his campaign, at least
Mhm.
100 million, and more than that. I mean, because that's why I'm saying we need to know who she is, right? I mean, because her contribution shaped policy. You move the you
Mhm.
move the the embassy to a contested place. Jerusalem is supposed to be a place that belongs to everybody, period, for so many reasons. I mean, we just keep on going with this. And I'm seeing that, Solomon, you're saying Epstein is old news. No, you need to know the Epstein story. When you really understand the implications of his story, he's not old news. He's very, very current. But
Mhm.
WIC and SNAP, very, very current. Do you have health insurance? If they take the supplements away, do you know what your health insurance is going to cost? They're
Or your
expecting
premiums.
20
And
million people. Oh, they're expecting 20 million people
yeah.
to be kicked out the system and 50,000 a year to die. That ought to
Mhm.
concern people. I,
Mhm.
I don't
Because
understand.
again, like I said, but you know what, Miss Jackson,
Santita will do.
I
That's fine.
represent a very diverse district, okay?
Mhm.
And I stump hard, especially on that west side, because it has been intentionally disenfranchised since the riots, okay? This is where Martin Luther King had walked those streets and he was fighting for housing. He was fighting for all of this stuff. And it's still a community that, there is some progress there, but from 1968 all the way up to 2025, there has never been a real investment in North Lawndale. And so I'm stumping in North Lawndale. Now I have West Garfield Park. That's another area, right, where those folks have not seen as much investment in those communities. And I can walk throughout the district, and like I said, it's a beautiful district, but you can see wealth on one end and you can see disenfranchisement on the other end. And this district has so much development, so much money just flowing through it, but it's not reaching the people who need it the most. And so when I think about the things that are happening right now, when I'm talking to folks on the West Side, it is conversations. These are tough conversations to have because, again, these folks feel left out, and they have been feeling left out for a long time. And so some of the comments, some of the, things that they're seeing going on, some of them are out of touch with it because they're literally fighting battles in front of their houses every day. So they're not thinking about no Epstein files, even though those are important, but it's just not important to them. When they hear things about public safety, getting better, they don't see the numbers. They don't see what I see. They see people getting shot in front of their house every day, right? So it's a different conversation when you're talking to folks on the west side of Chicago, at least where I'm knocking doors at, versus
And in
when I'm talking
Anacostia,
to somebody
in
on that
DC.
eastern part of my district. And that's a problem because it's easy to manipulate people who are not as engaged or who are not as up to date what's going on. And they're just simply following folks on social media. And so I have to spend a lot of time literally having one-on-one conversations. A 2-minute conversations for one candidate turns into a 30 or hour conversation for me. Because one, I care about the people I represent, and then I care about making sure they know the facts. So it's going to take a lot of organizing to get everybody on the same page and to stop looking at this as a Democrat versus Republican and look at it for what it really is. These are some of the richest people that are sucking poor working class people dry. And it has always been about the money. These opportunities that people are wishing that they could have and that they can just hold, touch and feel, it's getting further and further away from them. When you think about contracts, when you think about, new development coming in, like we're fighting 3 times harder to make sure at least some folks get some of those jobs. And I'm not even going to talk about the black men. Black men do not feel value at all. They don't care about the Republican Party like that, but they like the fact that this man is talking crazy because they're saying the things that they wish they could say to somebody from, a Democratic Party, right? And so that's
because
just
they
a
don't see
whole
the
different
Democrats.
conversation.
Well, because they don't see the Democrats fighting.
They don't see the Democrats as helping them as black men. What they see for them is prison. That's what they see. They see prison. They see policies that have been created long before now that have locked a lot of them up, locked them out of a lot of opportunities. And yes, we have changed a lot of that. And we're still changing it because you have a new wave of folks who are in these positions that are on a more progressive level of, and restorative justice practices now. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done from these communities that have been left out. And so to have any conversation about what's going on in Washington and what's happening here in Chicago and across this country without talking about what this country has done to black people, that is a problem. It is. It's a problem because that conversation keeps coming up. And I will also add that when this guy got reelected, it was a blow to black women. Okay? Because we have always backed this party. We have always shown up strong. So it was a blow to black women. But it is black women that's still out here trying to talk and hold on to what we have. And we get it. But at the same time, we are being faced with our own folks looking at us like we're crazy. But we understand what's at stake. We get it. And I'm sorry, and I don't want to curse on your show, but
Please don't.
reality is that Democrats, we give a damn. Yeah. We care about people's health care. That's why we lowered the prescriptions costs. That's why we expanded health care. That's why we made sure that we had protections here for women in our reproductive health care. That is the reason why we keep leading on national.
Well, oh my goodness. State Senator Lakeisha Collins. Well, you know what?
Sorry. We haven't engaged them enough, is what I'm saying.
Well, no. I mean, but that's historically been the case. I mean, that was the fight when Reverend was running for president in the 80s. cut us in, cut us or cut us out.
Cut it out.
This is not new. This quite frankly, this is old business, and we've only been with the Democrats really since '64. That's why it was such a monumental move for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's father to not to endorse John Kennedy, because we were, because the Republicans were with us on the end of slavery. I mean, Hubert Humphrey was fighting to get civil rights at the 48 convention, and it blew up in his face. I mean, this is what we do, and it is a fight. It's always a fight for the least of these. It's always a fight. But I tell you what, Lonnie Guinier, the great legal scholar and Harvard law professor who was pushed out of becoming one of our assistant attorney generals, she said, we are the canaries in the mine. And you send the canary down into the mine. If the canary comes up still chirping, well, then it's safe for the miners to go down. If the canary comes up and the canary's not alive, well, then you have a problem. If the canary is woozy, you have a problem. So I think that what we have to do is understand where the problem is. I mean, because we do have a problem, Jane.
Yeah, I mean, the powers that be are winning, and they have been winning for a long time, no matter who has been in a position of power. The more there's policies and people that are not benefiting everybody, and the way we divide people up is, by issues that you care about, where it's like, you're told you can't have it all.
Mm-hmm.
But you can. This isn't like there's that famous needlepoint saying where it's like you can't have it, or this isn't pie or something, where it's like, how a pie gets divided up. It's like, there is enough resources, there is enough money to take care of people.
Yeah.
To cover basic human needs. And all the people in positions of power, their lives aren't going to be upset just because people's basic human needs are kept. I know, Santita, we've spoken a lot about kind of your father's 1984 DNC speech, the Rainbow Coalition one. Like, I think about that speech all the time. And, we must come together. Everybody can come together and fight for the issues that matter. White, progressive, Black people, everybody should be coming together and agreeing that basic human needs matter. And
but Jane, isn't that the only way that we're going to win? I mean, at the end of the day, everybody, my father would always say that, women, you're right, but your patch isn't big enough.
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus, everybody's right, but your patch isn't big enough. We're all the majority if we come together. We're not the 1%, we're the 99%. And I think that when I hear, just so that she was not cut off, the senator was not cut off. She was having some technical issues.
Yeah, I had some.
You ought to know, and that's okay. You ought to know well enough. I'm not a hardcore partisan. I don't need to explain that to you anymore, and I'm not going to get into all of that. I want something that's going to work. That is it. Okay? And I'm going to work with people who will work with me on something that is sane. And I'm very clear also that we are dealing with bread and butter issues, Senator Collins. We're always dealing with bread and butter. New Hampshire, 19,000 Black women were fired from their jobs between February and July, and the hemorrhaging has not stopped.
No, and
if I may say, I need all of my sisters of every other color to come and say, hey, we got a problem. Now I know 176,000 white women got jobs, and 176,000 Latino women, and 142,000 white women, but 365,000 white men got jobs. At the end of the day, all these jobs are going to go. See, everybody's gotten very comfortable in their silos. It's not working. It's not working because, look, people can't pay on their cards. They're 2 months delinquent. I saw that on the news today. And all of the economic data are showing that everybody's hurting. The University of Chicago, for heaven's sake, as it for undergraduate, is $100,000 a year. Who can go there? Have you been on the campus? I grew up on the campus. That's where my father went to graduate school. Guess what? And several of us have gone to graduate school there. There are not many Americans there. Not as many as you think. They can't afford it. Senator Collins?
Yes.
Oh, no,
I
I
just wanted to,
thought you wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
yes, I just wanted to be clear. I don't want, because I know my service got messed up. I don't want anybody to think that I am, you know, downing Democrats. No, I'm saying that Democrats give a damn. Like, we do care, and that's why we have done a lot of the work that we've been doing. What I'm saying
But
is
let me
that
ask you this: Are you
I'm
not
talking
engaging?
to,
But let me ask you this: Are you not also engaging? Because those that you love, you're a mother. You
yes,
engage in healthy critique. If
correct.
your child does something that you know is incorrect, my mother would say,
Mm-hmm.
"I'm going to get you before the world does." Does that
Exactly.
sound familiar to anyone? I know it sounds familiar to
That's
everyone.
very familiar to me.
Okay, it sounds familiar to me, and I
And I
know.
do it to my sons all the time.
Well, that's all I'm trying to say. So I'm
Yeah,
saying I think you can be a Democrat, you can be a Republican, and be critical of your party.
correct. And so what I'm saying is that I know what I hear on the doors, and what, folks are telling me is nothing new to what's been said. And I think this is a wake up call, to be honest with you. But I am encouraging that we, you know, we have to get more involved with folks who have not been as engaged in the party, who does not understand a lot of the things that are at stake and how it affects them. I'll tell you this really quick. When I was emancipating out of child welfare at 20 with my son, I had no idea how much politics played into my life. I didn't. I didn't know who was responsible for childcare. I didn't know much about the aid office. I had no idea. It was a whole new world for me. Once I got involved, I understood who I was angry at.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't my neighbor.
And
It
what was?
wasn't. It was the people who were in government, who were elected by me to serve and to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I learned the process too, that a representative is only as powerful if the community is with them.
Well, hold
And
on.
a
Let me
lot of
do
times,
this. Hold on,
yes,
because now that you are in government, because I've seen you
yes,
go up because you have been with the unions, you've done a lot. Now that you're in government, you see how business plays a role and
correct.
how you do what you do. So it's like, wait a minute, you're looking at the elected officials, but wait, there's some other folks that we don't see. Because see, to me,
Mm-hmm.
we're not holding the corporate world accountable enough for the
Correct.
mess that they have made.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, and I only have about 7 more minutes. I want to give everybody a couple of minutes and would you please, everyone, please do me a favor and come back to the show because I love everything. And let me tell you something. Jane doesn't have to be from Chicago. These are national, local, county, and global problems that we are dealing with. Period. I used to live in New York. That's where I lived coming out of college. So I still have deep, 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 deep ties to New York. I talk to somebody from New York just about every day. The people I lived with. So don't do that because I lived in Harlem. I lived on the Upper West Side and then I moved into Harlem. I'm real clear on how we live and where we live. And that's it. Just stop. At the end of the day, we are all in a jam. If they do not save health care, health care will either be a very, very expensive proposition for you or you won't be able to afford it. And just so that you know, the 50,000 plus number of people who are going to die came from Yale University. You know, I come with receipts, everybody, and that's just very real. So don't play with me. And Epstein is important. I told you because yeah. But would you have to explain it to people who are dealing with bread and butter issues? Of course you will.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to have that long conversation. I'm smart enough to know that there's some conversations I'm not going to have with people who are looking whose link card is about to run out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're dealing with right now, too.
Yeah.
But you got to deal with all of that. How do we go from no health care to dying? Very easily. That's what's going to happen. That's what Anusha, open up your mic because that's what we're going to be looking at.
I mean,
people are going to not make it.
it's so like to draw the connection for somebody about how this is going to impact you. First of all, it shouldn't have to take that. It shouldn't have to be how this bill is going to impact you for you to care about your neighbors, your loved ones, other people in your community. But let's spell this out. When people lose access to Medicaid, hospitals will close. In Illinois, just 12 hospitals are slated to close due to the gutting of Medicaid. So forget about just access to healthcare. When your emergency room is filled up, or when your hospital is closed entirely, the line from cutting Medicaid to dying is pretty clear. Even if you don't rely on Medicaid, even if your loved ones don't rely on Medicaid, entire communities are going to be devastated. And I guess that's our job as organizers, that we have to be able to explain the impact to people because they just don't get it. And I would say that that's a problem that Democrats have to own too, that we have to be effective communicators about what is going on and how that is going to impact people on a day-to-day basis. Because if you're still asking, how is this going to impact me? Or, well, this is about, them being undocumented folks or some other group. Well, wake up, because it's coming for you too. And it's not about Democrat or Republican individuals. Even Republicans are going to lose access to healthcare, lose access to food assistance. This is not going to have a partisan impact. They didn't shield, the Republican congressional districts and say, you guys can have your SNAP. No, the Republican Party's own base is going to hurt because of that earlier point that ultimately this is not about individuals and conservatives. This is about the wealthy, the elite, large corporations and billionaires. So people have to wake up, and we all have to do our part in explaining the message and the impact that these actions are going to have on folks' day-to-day experience.
Well, I hear you, and I'm telling you, if Epstein doesn't matter, then talk to the speaker about it. It matters to him, matters to them, and it's not just because you got some people we see in it. There are a whole lot of people, because Democrats and Republicans have not wanted this open.
Mm-hmm.
And and Democrats have a lot to answer for the 94 crime bill. Everybody got pardoned, but these people who are sitting up in jail on very, very lightweight drug charges. It's ridiculous. So there's a lot that we need to look at. Jane Ruby, because I'm going to go around and give everybody a couple of minutes. Help me to where should we be going as we're looking at Adelita's case, as we're looking at the case of the seat formerly held for the longest time by Sheila Jackson Lee. There's a lot of gamesmanship, and we are looking at people's health insurance doubling in days. We're looking at middle class people and upper middle class people who are standing in food lines, in food pantries that are running out of food. People are going to have to let these cars go. I mean, we are in crisis. Wherever we go. And, then you have people just really trying to shut down. I can't even get that. See, because if they can do this to Congresswoman-elect Grijalva, they can do that any place all around the country for whatever reason they choose. At the state level, because that's where the decisions are made. They're made at the state level. We see that because you decide who goes to Washington, because you decide how the districts are cut.
Mm-hmm.
These games that they're playing, Jane, nobody's going to win. We the people will lose.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we are in crisis mode, and it is all hands on deck. If the amount of conversations I have with people, at voter registration events, civic engagement initiatives that are like, oh, I don't do politics. Well, unfortunately, if you don't do politics is still going to do you.
Wow.
You are still affected by every decision that is happening. So why not make the choice to participate, to be an active and informed participant in our democracy, not only for your own sake, but for everyone else around you? We're so used to, cultivating the individual, that there's a larger obligation to who we are as citizens and people living in this country, that, it's like, everyone wants to be, their own little unique self, and that we're really losing out on the responsibility we have to other people. in my work of, just because I talk about the ERA all the time, you know, people are like, well, the ERA is just for women. It's like, no, it's also for men too. It protects everybody. It explicitly says it says gender. It is an everybody problem that we do not have equal rights protected in our Constitution, despite having met the constitutional requirement for the ERA to be published. When we're talking about the Congresswoman in Arizona, it explicitly says in the Constitution how the process works, and she is being denied it. It is an attack and assault on our Constitution.
Absolutely. And I think we should be concerned about that. Anusha, your final thoughts. And I want, and everyone, you've got to come back. We've got to, because we have to talk about ERA. We do. There's so much for us to discuss. And I'm so glad that we got this wonderful group together. Ooh, it excites me. And you need to let people know how they can get in touch with you, Illinois State Senator Lakeisha Collins, because I think you have some people who might want to contribute to your reelection campaign. If you like her, Solomon, then the mother's milk of politics is money. Send her some money. She's going to let you know how to do that. I said it. You're not going to get in trouble. I said it. It's my show. I can say it. Go on, Anusha.
Yeah, well, I'll say that I'm lucky enough to be represented by Senator Collins in Springfield. And if only everyone was so lucky to have representation like Senator Collins in Springfield and in DC, we would be in a very different place. Right now, we need to get organized and we need to be sounding the alarm. And what that looks like for each individual can be different, whether it's talking to your neighbors, your friends and family about what's going on, whether it's coming out to a rally, whether you're, out on the streets or in having these kitchen table conversations. We need to be sounding the alarm. So follow us, Citizen Action Illinois. We're organizing because we need to hold these members of Congress accountable too. So we've been out in Carbondale, we've been out in Rockford, out in Davenport in front of a congresswoman's office. She only won by 600 votes, and she still voted for that big ugly bill to take away health care and food assistance for hundreds of thousands of people in her community. So we need to do the work to organize, to hold people accountable, and I hope that you'll join us.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Illinois State Senator Lakeisha Collins, number one, how can people get in touch with you?
Yes. So on my government side, you can reach out to me at office@LakeishaCollins.com. That's LakeishaCollins.com. I am located on the west side in North Lawndale at 2165 South Millard Avenue. You can follow me on social media at State Senator Lakeisha Collins. On Facebook and on Instagram is Senator is SEN Collins 5. Nope, I'm sorry, at SEN Lakeisha Collins. I'm so sorry. And then on Facebook is SEN Collins 5. Yeah, that's how you can get in touch with me.
Okay, and just in a minute, what do you want people to know?
I mean, I tell everybody just, keep an open mind. Remember that this fight is about good and evil. There's a lot of history that is happening with the changes that we're seeing in Washington, D.C. today. This is something that they have been, organizing behind the scenes since these civil rights and protections have been put in place. These folks have been organizing and figuring out a way to roll them all back. Immigration. I know a lot of people are saying this is just about immigrants. It's not. It's so many different layers to what they're doing in Washington. And so have the tough conversations. One of my mentors always told me that, those conversations that make people feel uncomfortable, those are the good conversations to have. People have to be uncomfortable right now. What I see coming up in November 1st is chaos. Chaos. That's what I see. I know what it's like to be hungry. I was a young person. I grew up in a very abusive environment. I was struggling, living house to house. I have a lot of lived experiences, so I already know what's coming. People who have already been living in survival mode, they are going to be in even more of a survival mode. There are people who are working to die. Okay, I'm going to say that again. People have been working to die. They have not been working to take a vacation. They have not been working to live a lavish life. Everything has been designed to keep people like they're on a hamster wheel. And so we got to do better too as a party to make sure that folks are more independent. But we also got to fight back on a lot of this stuff that is happening in Washington, because I refuse to live under the dictatorship. I refuse to lose my civil rights, my voting rights, and I'm on the and I know people have job protections to be in place. And so we have to continue to resist, educate, and get our boots on the grounds. And we have to seriously come together as people, like Blacks, white, Latinos, you name it. Like, we're going to have to seriously be about a fight that includes everybody. Everybody. And I'm talking about all our issues, and find that commonality to where people are going to be charged. And they're not thinking about these one-off issues, but an issue that, like our elders did, they got everybody to the front and to fight back against Jim Crow. We got to do the same thing here. So,
And the fight to get
that's enough of my ranting, but I
no, we
appreciate you,
need
Ms.
that.
Jackson, for having me on.
We need that. And
with these
the
wonderful
thing is,
ladies.
and you need to get excited. You need to get excited. And you should be talking to Jane. Jane should be talking to Anusha. Everyone should be talking to Senator Collins. We all should be talking to each other, because globally today, we've been able to bring different experiences to the table. That's what matters. Everybody, your representation, Jane, matters. Your representation, Anusha, matters. Senator Collins, your representation matters. It all matters. Everybody brings something to this discussion. Everyone brings something to the table. That's why I love potluck. You might end up liking something that you never, ever, ever thought you'd like before. Just might like it. Learn something. We all have something to learn from each other. Wherever we look, as a white woman, that matters. Your experience matters, Jane. Somehow or another, we all ended up here. Anusha, your experience matters. Somehow or another, we all ended up here. Lakeisha, we all got here together. What do they say? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. The only way we're going to advance this American project and the world is if we come together. And stop begrudging everybody the privilege that you think they have. Let me tell you something that I've learned about life. You don't know someone's story. That's why these celebrity biographies are such wild bestsellers, because you never knew that behind. My father always says that there's a lot of private pain in public life. Think about that, everybody. Everybody is toting something that you do not understand. The key is for you to remember. Remember what you've been through. Don't get bitter, get better, and decide to make the world a better place. Together we can do that. I love you, everybody. Let's talk about ICE if they show up at your front door. We just see and Alder just had 2 of their staffers in Chicago detained by ICE. And guess what? They're U.S. citizens. So what happens? Now ICE are walking around, driving around, and they are wearing street clothes. And they're stopping people and arresting them. In the Black neighborhoods. Many people thought, okay, you didn't think it was going to touch you. And eventually it's going to get white people too. Watch, it's coming. Let us come together, everybody. That's the only way we're going to win. Next hour of the Santita Jackson Show starts in just about 1 minute. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.